Good evening, everybody. This is really something very amazing to be the part of such wonderful initiative as the event One Rating the Teachers. And at the moment when everybody is cynical about role of teacher in present day education system, this organization, this event, it seems very bizarre. Because in every nook and corner, for everything good and bad happening around us, the one person primarily held responsible is teacher. And it means teacher is not an ordinary individual. Because if he is responsible for everything happening around, it means teacher is very important. And therefore, this very event organized by South Haryana with special efforts of Rahulji and Ms. Poojaji, it deserves all appreciation, first of all. So let's first of all join hands for them that they have come forward to organize this very event. And at the outset, formally I compliment and congratulate Dr. Alok Pandeyji, National Coordinator, Society for Holistic Development of Students, Ms. Pooja Rao and Rahul Goyalji for this inspiring initiative to conduct 1 week program to one-rate teachers. And any such event to celebrate the teachers, it puts a voluminous load of expectations on our shoulders. Means teachers should not be very much happy about it. Rather, they should feel cautioned. When any such event takes place, teachers should feel cautioned that yes, something is expected of me. And with this ornamental title, One Rating the Teachers, that load becomes heavier on the shoulder of the teacher. Because the adoration of the teacher actually makes him or her introspect. Introspect in such a way that he realizes the responsibilities in the larger interest of the society and the nation. And this is not an ordinary task. This is actually something very much demanding. This is something that requires a lot of sacrifice, commitment, dedication, perseverance, and all sublime virtues and attributes which a human should possess. And in this material world, it becomes quite challenging to possess these attributes and then to practice those attributes in the right perspective. The ornamental words or alankars which are poured over us on the Teacher's Day help us wake up from the inertia. They just help us wake up from the inertia or the laziness or from the sleep. And actually, these celebrations on Teacher's Day and like the celebration as South Haryana is organizing today, they wake up, they make us wake up, they help us wake up from the inertia and rejuvenate the teachers to meet the aspirations of our students. And therefore, I take this opportunity which has been created for me and for all other teachers by South Haryana as a double-edged sword ये दुधारी तलवार है. We should not be like overwhelmed with the term used here, venerating the teachers. This term is to be taken with pinch of salt. And this initiative of Sodh Haryana, it is a double-edged sword which serves twin purposes. It serves two purposes, for me at least. One is of course celebration of teaching profession. And second, I think the second purpose is more deliberate for the organizers. And the second purpose of such event is to give a wake-up call for the present generation of teachers. And that's why we should not be swayed by the words used on the backdrop, venerating the teachers. Before joining you on this platform, I had the opportunity to hear other esteemed panelists also. And Rahulji and Poojaji, they might be thinking as to when did sir join us and when did sir heard them speak. I enjoyed their speeches, every bit of those speeches. And when I heard those speeches uploaded on like your Facebook page, and after hearing these esteemed panelists who delivered their talks on various topics relating to the theme of the event, and those speeches by the galaxy of intellectual luminaries, including Professor Vinay Kapoor Mehraji, Vice Chancellor Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, National Law University, Sonipat, Professor Bhagwan Singh Chaudhary ji, Registrar Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra, Professor Yudhvir Singh, Dean College Development Council, Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak, and my very close friend, Dr. Anand Sharma, Dean School of Business and Management Studies, Central University of Haryana. And after hearing these four scholarly teachers, and some of them are quite senior to me and they are just like an inspiration for me, I find myself quite incompetent in delivering any substance in today's talk. Therefore, out of that nervousness, very obvious nervousness, I must first acknowledge all these eminent teachers for their inspiring expressions on what it is to be a teacher. Teacher किसे कहते हैं? Whom should we acknowledge as a teacher? This has been the common ground on which all four speakers deliberated and delivered their talks. Professor Vinay Kapoor delivered an expressive and impressive talk on traditional concept of teacher rooted in Indian ethos, and she showed her concern over the existing norms deterring genuine engagement of the teacher. Professor Bhagwan Singh Chaudhary ji, he enlightened us all about opportunities and challenges of digital learning while sharing his personal experiences and sharp observations about the shifting priorities during the pandemic period. I'm really impressed, particularly by that very anecdote in Professor Bhagwan Singh ji's speech, where he talks about as to how the teachers in Germany, they devised very innovative pedagogy to teach a child born in a Hindi-speaking family to teach him a foreign language in such an excellent way. And that really impressed me. Professor Yudhvir Singh presented a historical and cultural perspective of Indian education system, highlighting the prominence of value education, and he referred back to all great teachers of ancient India. Dr. Anand Sarmaji, my good friend here at Central University of Haryana, he articulated his sentiments as a teacher, and he was quite emotional, particularly because our beloved founder Vice Chancellor, he left for heavenly abode 2 days back. And he in a way dedicated his speech to Professor M.C. Sarmaji, the founder Vice Chancellor of Central University of Haryana, a great teacher, a great scholar, a great legal luminary, and of course a great educational leader. After 4 days of engaging deliberations on past and present of teacher and teaching, I may please be excused if I fail to offer anything new for the participants today, because much has been discussed, much has been deliberated, and most of the issues which you find to be relevant have been so beautifully touched upon by 4 previous speakers and panelists. I must share here with all the participants that when Poojaji asked me to accept the invitation as one of the panelists, at that very moment, I didn't realize the seriousness of the agenda. Just out of impulse, he simply invited me and I simply said, fine, fix it for 9th at 5. I couldn't understand as to how serious this agenda is. But as the date came closer to me, I found myself struggling for the topic. And finally, I decided to speak on restoring the importance of teacher through National Education Policy 2020. Because this is the moment when we, all stakeholders, students and teachers, day and night we are talking about one document that shows us a bright future ahead and that demands a lot from every stakeholder of education system, be it is a student or a teacher or academic leader or even the parent. National Education Policy 2020, it has affirmed and reaffirmed, I should say reaffirmed, because this very job has been done previously also. And this is in a way reaffirmation of the role of teacher. And role of teacher not as an ordinary stakeholder, but as the fulcrum of desired transformations. Starting with the vision of developing an equitable and just society, to empowering the nation to face new set of challenges posed by new world order and global ecosystem. The teacher remains the catalyst of change. And today when you go through the newspapers, you find a new phrase very commonly used. And that phrase is new normal, new world order. And now erstwhile normal has been replaced by new normal. And in this very changed scenario, we are left to think of as to how this corona pandemic period has put us in a situation where at a particular moment we feel as if we need to rework, we need to re-engineer, and we need to re-gear our strategies for, particularly for mainstreaming of education. And at other times, this period has also given us a new hope. And what is that new hope? New hope is, it has shown us as to how it is to be, or how best can we become more and more resilient. That is, we can face the difficulties, we can grow ahead, we can find new ways, and we can always cope up with the times. This also has been taught by this particular moment where entire world is struggling to come out from the clutches of COVID-19 pandemic. Because it is the time which can be sometimes taken as an opportunity, and sometimes it can be taken as the time which has put the life at halt. And most importantly, here in Indian context, the lofty ideals, lofty I say because though they need to be put in practice, but still, like, sometimes they are so spiritual in nature, so high sounding in nature, that we don't feel like that they can ever be put to real use. And that's why the lofty ideals envisaged in the policy, including universal access to holistic quality education, lifelong learning opportunities for all, constructing and constructive revamping of aspirational goals of 21st century education, and regaining of the status of Vishwa Guru in true sense of the word. And these ideals shall see the light of the day only with active participation of teaching community, not only as the disseminator of knowledge, not only as a communicator of the knowledge, but also as the most vital stakeholder to develop high-level, foundational, creative, cognitive, social, ethical, and emotional capacities among individual students. And therefore, I started my talk by saying that this celebration of teacher, it is not mere celebration. It is in a way reminder. It is an alarming bell. It is an alarming bell that alarms the teacher that you are being watched, and society looks forward to you to perform. And not only perform up to the expectation of the society and the nation. And therefore, this event, venerating the teacher, is in a way the event questioning the teacher. The NEP 2020, it gives us an opportunity to commemorate great Indian classical scholars as gurus. They have been hailed as great gurus, bringing laurels to Indian past, Indian prestige as Vishwa Guru. as hub of knowledge. And these gurus, which have been named particularly in the introductory pages of the policy, including Charak, Susrut, Aryabhatta, Brahmahira, Bhaskaracharya, Brahmgupt, Chanakya, Chakrapani, Madhav, Panini, Patanjali, Nagarjuna, Gautam, Pingala, Sankardev, Maitri, Gargi, and many others who made phenomenal contribution in diverse areas of knowledge. And this is in a way a true homage. This policy is in a way true homage paid to those great classical, Indian classical scholars who have provided a strong foundation to Indian knowledge system. And taking clue from the ancient Indian scholars, the policy exhorts the teachers. Exhortation, just like as Vivekananda has said, arise, awake, and stop not. And stop not till the goal is reached. Similarly, the policy also is an exhortation to the teachers. Taking clue from the ancient Indian scholars and by showing us the faces of set of scholars, set of great Indian scholars, the policy exhorts the teachers to hasten the fundamental reforms which are visualized in the policy, and the policy expects the teachers to be well versed not only in the latest pedagogical advances, not only pedagogical advances, but it's a sort of dil mange more. And it also requires the teachers to imbibe in him or her Indian ethos, culture, languages, knowledge system, and folk traditions. It means now the teacher is required to be multifaceted. And he is not simply a communicator. He is not simply a disseminator. He is not simply a medium for transferring of the knowledge. Rather, he has to first perform as an exemplary role model by imbibing all the attributes, all the best of the attributes, which are hailed as the ideals of a good teacher. The national education policy reposes great amount of trust in the teacher. And it's something very unique. Because when sometimes we feel as if we have lost self-confidence, as if we have stopped believing ourselves. And at that moment when we have stopped believing ourselves, the policy reposes great amount of trust in the teacher. As a revered member, as the organizers has given the adjective revered and venerated, as venerated teachers, venerated members of the society, who are endowed with immense potential to truly save the progeny of the nation. Similarly, the guiding principles of the policy accord great priority to identifying and fostering the unique capabilities of each student. The policy, it talks about flexibility in learning, multidisciplinary and a holistic education across disciplines, ethical and constitutional values, ethical, constitutional, and even humanitarian values as the basis of education system. This policy cherishes multilingualism, continuous formative assessment, extensive use of technology, respect for diversity and local context, and spiritual aspects which make the role of a teacher very much arduous and challenging. The policy puts teachers at the heart of the learning process. Now, I have tried to read this national education policy because I have been given a responsibility as the chairperson of the task force of the university to coordinate and to find out the strategies to implement the provisions of national education policy in the university. And I started reading this policy from the point of view of a teacher. As to where is the teacher in the policy? And I found that teacher is everywhere. And he is the kingpin. He has been considered as the kingpin of entire national education policy. The policy puts teachers at the heart of the learning process and underlines the importance of empowering strategies to orient them for the revived aspirations of the learners. And the policy makers, not only the learners, but also the policy makers, they have great aspirations which are to be fulfilled by the teachers. And that's why, because the teacher has to be trained differently. The teacher has to be empowered differently. The teacher has to be oriented differently, for which the policy talks about minimum 50 hours of continuous professional development opportunities to each teacher every year. Besides, teachers have been assured of more autonomy. I don't know, I have read some articles where some cynic scholars, they have come out with many things wrong about the policy. But really, like in this present context, if there has come out some document which talks so high about the teacher, then it is National Education Policy 2020, where teacher has been put in the center. And he has been made as the fulcrum, as the pivot, as the most significant instrument for any sort of social transformation required in the new world order at national level, and of course to affect that change across the borders. Teachers have been assured of more autonomy and freedom in pedagogical and curricular aspects. This policy talks about more freedom and autonomy to teachers, particularly in two important aspects of teaching. One is pedagogical aspect. Now it is national education policy that determines and that of course recommends that yes, teacher should have autonomy to use his own or her own pedagogy. And of course, he or she should be responsible in preparing updated curriculum for the students in view of the changing social order, the changing atmosphere, the changing priorities, the changing needs of the industry, changing needs of the profession, changing needs of students as consumers. The new education policy reiterates the principle of reinforcement, शाबाशी बहुत जरूरी है. And that's why new education policy, it talks about reinforcement, recognition, and rewards for the teachers, devising and adopting novel approaches to teaching for improved learning outcomes. It talks about as to how important it is to reinforce the teachers, to reward the teachers, to appreciate the teachers. Okay, to say shabash all the time, very well done. And this will bring positive change. It recommends rise in salary and other incentives to the teachers doing outstanding work. Acknowledging the importance of quality teachers, it also paves the way for a robust merit-based structure of tenure, promotion and salary structure to incentivize outstanding performers. Special salary structure, merit-based structure of tenure, and of course merit-based promotion, just to incentivize quality in teaching. This policy, national education policy, it places unprecedented onus on the teacher to be a disseminator of multidisciplinary knowledge and a crusader for the revamping of entire education system, so as to sync it with the spirit of the policy to integrate the essence of cherished ancient traditions with the modern education system. There is an essay written by T.S. Eliot, very popular essay, and most of the students of English literature, they happen to read it. Tradition and individual talent. And this essay in a way celebrates as to how it is important to integrate the past into present. And this integration has been reiterated here through this national education policy. And it positions the teacher at the center stage for realization of the ambitious targets. There are many targets laid down in the policy. And those targets can be achieved with the proactive support and contribution of the teachers. And some of the targets where like teacher can play a pivotal role are attaining early childhood care and education by 2030, universal foundational literacy and numeracy in primary school by 2025, inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all learners, regardless of social or economic background, and tuned with Sustainable Development Goal 4 by 2030, promotion of all scheduled languages, regional languages, and mother tongue of the learners, and target to achieve 100% GER in school education by 2030, and of course 50% GER in higher education and vocational education by 2035, and all these targets can be achieved in a time-bound manner with the active support of the teacher. And that's why teacher is very much there in the policy. Teacher is very important in the policy. And through this program, Poojaji and Rahulji, they have put an enormous amount of challenge and responsibility on our shoulders to realize how important we are. The achievement of these targets would certainly require the teachers to be oriented and trained with new set of uniform professional standards. Just 3-4 days back, my friend Pramodji, he organized a webinar, national webinar, where we had Professor K. Ramchandran Indian representative to UNESCO as the esteemed speaker. And he was talking about that, and somebody asked a question. And the question was very pertinent. And somebody asked the question, sir, what is the difference between NPE and NEP? Means 1986 and 2020. And particularly concerning teacher education and teacher training. And then he said that yes, one thing is very special about NEP 2020, and that is, it is for the first time that any policy has come out with a mechanism to devise uniform professional standards for teachers to be determined by a special body, National Level Professional Standard Setting Body, PSSB. This is the unique feature of National Education Policy 2020. In addition to that, teachers are also expected to develop. It's not simply that yes, they are professionally sound and I am a language teacher and I am proficient in my language and literature that I teach. That's not enough. It also talks about secondary specializations. If I am a teacher of language and if I feel like developing a secondary specialization in social sciences or any other science or any other branch of social science, then I shall be provided training so as to develop secondary specialization also, and it will enable me as a better teacher with capability and ability to integrate the element of multidisciplinarity in my teaching and of course in whatever way I guide my students, and that will certainly help. And these secondary specializations will be imparted to the teachers in the form of pre-service or in-service training so that the teachers are able to understand and handle the special requirements of children. Here the special requirements means requirements of students with special needs also, requirements of differently able students also, requirements of those students also who may be slow learners, maybe because of one reason or the other, or who have some other like socio-linguistic, cultural, somatic, psychosomatic issues confronting them. And these secondary specializations will prepare the teacher to handle diverse types of problems faced by the students in the process of learning, for which the policy has set the target to shift the teacher education to multidisciplinary institutes, colleges or universities by 2030. It's not enough. The policy also focuses on restructuring teacher education programs with special focus on introduction of 4-year integrated B.Ed degree by 2030, along with special shorter local teacher education programs, This is the new concept, very, very innovative concept. And it talks about as to how, for example, there is a school complex or a set of schools in a vicinity, cluster of schools. In a particular cluster of schools or complex of schools, there will be good number of teachers who will be proficient in teaching in the local languages also. And this is how the agenda of the Government of India to be vocal for local, it gets nicely articulated through the policy. Wonderfully articulated through the policy. Vocal for local. And when I was hearing Bhagwan Singh ji talking about as to how his son, he was given instructions and training for learning of German in the school with special instruction to the parents to use local language in the family. And this is how there were wonderful outcomes, more than expected outcomes. It means the command over the local language in a student, it makes him proficient. It makes him good at learning other languages too. And that's how this concept of vocal for local, it gets beautifully articulated through National Education Policy 2020, with special focus on local languages, mother tongues, and regional languages. And because I am a teacher of language, and that's why I am really impressed by those very recommendations where there is a mention of as to how important it is to promote all, not only scheduled languages, but also the regional languages, and not only scheduled and regional languages, but also the local languages and mother tongues of all the learners, irrespective of the background, socio-economic or cultural background. And this is how it's very important. And yes, this 4-year BA degree program, which will see the light of the day by 2030, it will prepare, as we have discussed, local teachers. And these local teachers may be the teachers who are formally appointed, and these local teachers may be the teachers who are not formally appointed. There may be some volunteers, okay, from society, who may help the cluster of schools in disseminating of instruction in the language of that very territory where the school or the cluster of schools is located. And for that, short-term courses shall be launched so that these local teachers and the existing teachers, they may be trained for secondary specializations. To develop the future teachers as Guru incarnates, Guru ke avatar. Now this concept of Guru, it seems to have lost its significance, and it is a feeling that we developed some time. And I don't know whether this feeling emerges out of helplessness or our cynical attitude or the context around. I don't know what is the reason, but yes, when somebody addresses a teacher as Guru, then it sounds something, what should I say, exaggeration or hyperbolic. It sounds a bit hyperbolic today. Because today we have lost that belief in ourselves. We don't trust ourselves. And we seem to have gone away from that concept of Guru, which was so much rooted in our tradition, in our Indian knowledge system, and it was so nicely impregnated there in our philosophy, in our culture, in our literature, in our languages. and to develop the future teachers as guru incarnates who are capable to accept all the expectations and challenges, there is one more provision that has been highlighted here in national education policy, and that is there should be a national curriculum framework for teacher education. There should be uniform national curriculum framework for teacher education, and it will come out very soon by the year 2021. And it will be the guiding document for teacher education programs, and teacher education programs, no doubt, many of the institutes in the country are still pursuing these programs, offering these programs with all quality content and quality pedagogy and other aspects, but still much is required. Much is required, and for that, to fill that gap, to bridge that gap, it particularly highlights some important agenda for the future teachers. And the first one is teacher training will be focused at inclusion. Inclusion is the spirit that forms the basis of teacher education according to NEP 2020. Second is equity. It should orient the teacher so that he or she respects equity. And then the teacher should be trained in such a way that he or she is amply sensitive towards gender issues and the issues concerning underrepresented groups, socio-economically disadvantaged groups, SEDGs. This is the term used here. And in view of the growing dependence on IT intervention and teaching, means the beautiful part of the policy is that it doesn't merely expect, it offers a lot to the teacher. It promises a lot to the teacher that yes, you come ahead and we will be with you. You will be supported. You will be given all facilities. And for that, remaining conscious of the fact that in today's context we can't do without IT. It has become as important as roti, kapda and makan. And that's why, considering the importance of IT intervention in teaching, the policy promises that teachers will be exposed to training through Diksha platform for high quality online content creation using online teaching tools. The new generation of teachers will be friendly with e-learning platforms and other assistive tools to supplement their mastery over the content and pedagogy. And this is how National Education Policy 2020, it envisions the teacher to imbibe all the spiritual, as we have talked about earlier also. The teacher has to now have a new avatar with all spiritual values, professional proficiency, ethical attributes of an ideal mentor and guide for the students. And it makes it quite imperative for the students, parents, governments, and other stakeholders to rethink their attitude towards the lesser acknowledged warrior in the mission of constructive social change. When we are ready to own this responsibility to perform as the key catalyst in the process of social change, then the society around should also change its attitude towards this bechara prani teacher. This 1 week program, again I am coming to this program. This 1 week program to 100 the teachers shall be truly successful if it motivates us to derive inspiration from the great Indian visionary teachers such as Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji, Rabindranath Tagore, Swami Vivekananda, Savitribai Phule, Premchand, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, and many others who dedicated their entire life in the service of the nation. Considering teaching as the noblest profession, Kalam rightly observed. And what did he say? He simply said a very ordinary thing, which is so extraordinary, which is so difficult to achieve. And he ordinarily said, and he said, if the people remember me as a good teacher, that will be the biggest honor for me. That will be the biggest honor for me if somebody considers me as a good teacher. No other honor can equal the honor to be considered as a good teacher. And that sense of gratification, that self-gratification and that sense of achievement which we derive when we are hailed as good teacher, that is unparalleled, and no other achievement or no other earning can give us or impart us that much pleasure which we derive through our performance as a good teacher. Last but not the least, I once again thank Dr. Alok Pandey, Ms. Pooja ji, Rahul Goyal ji, and the team of organizers for conceptualizing and organizing an event to foreground the role of teacher in the changing world order. It may be a coincidence that in 2020, when I was preparing for today's lecture, I happened to visit some important sources. And one important information that I could gather is that in 2020, World Teachers Day is being celebrated on the theme, and theme of that day is teachers leading in crisis, reimagining the future. Teachers leading in crisis, reimagining the future. This is the theme of World Teachers Day for 2020, and it rightly sets the tone for the teachers to be considered as the most important stakeholder of education system. So let's follow Radhakrishnan's mantra, and he gave a very ordinary mantra as Kalam Sahib has given. Teach to transform. Very simple. Teach to transform. And if the teacher fails to transform, the teacher fails in himself or herself. Teach to transform. And this mantra, very ordinary mantra, teach to transform. This is what policy has been saying all the time. This is what was said when NP came in 1986, or Program of Action came in 1992, or earlier policies also, Kothari Commission or Knowledge Commission or other commissions. Everywhere, very ordinary target that was set for the teacher was to emerge as the catalyst for transformation. And that was so ordinarily said by Radhakrishnan ji. Teach to transform. And why should we teach to transform? Very simple. to realize the vision of the nation as envisaged by Tagore in his beautiful verse. That we have to create a nation where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. My Father, let my country awake. Before I shut my mouth, I must express my gratitude for all the sincere participants for bearing with me for almost an hour. And before I say thank you to all, I must narrate personal experience which may perhaps be liked by some of the participants. And I don't know whether we have ever oriented ourselves to that style of teaching or not, or have we developed that tendency to teach as it was cherished so nicely by our teachers. And I usually talk about it in my class. I certainly share it with my students. My primary school teacher, he used to bring a packet of sugar candies. And in those days, in 1 rupee, there used to be 100 small sugar candies. We could afford to have 100 small sugar candies in 1 rupee. And he used to bring that packet in the class. But he used not to distribute those candies every day. And intermittently, maybe 3 days, after 3 days gap, or maybe once in a week, he used to distribute those sugar candies. And then, of course, for example, I remain absent today. And when I was absent, sugar candies were distributed in the class. And I used to feel bad about it. That I didn't go to school, and today, Masterji distributed sugar candies in the class. Next day, everybody is regular. Then we used to wait. Now I have started coming to the class regularly, but no distribution of sweets. Then again he will bring a packet of sugar candies and he used to distribute. And this is how he used to engage the students. Other than the brilliant teaching that he performed in the class, he was a wonderful human being. And the teacher, he was not only the teacher, he used to come to our houses, he used to meet our parents quite often. He used to come with the report cards. He used to share those report cards with the parents. And then he used to be so familiar with all the families of the students that more than the students, parents used to respect him. And I still remember that in those days, it was very difficult to have government grants. And he was the man who collected donations from the villagers, and with that donation, he didn't hire any laborer, any mason. He performed as a mason himself, and all the students of senior classes, they worked with him as if they are the laborers, voluntarily, and they constructed the boundary wall of the school. This engagement is important. This engagement with the institution is important. Loss of the institution is the loss of the teacher. And of course, loss of the teacher is loss of the institution. It is reciprocal. And generally I feel that a teacher, if I am really a teacher, then of course I should have the passion to teach. And other than the passion to teach, I should have compassion for students. This compassion is as integral to teaching as passion for teaching is. And all my good friends who have joined this event through different platforms, they will perhaps appreciate this point, that teaching without compassion and teaching without passion, it remains lifeless. It remains lifeless. I have just noticed that there is a student of mine, Aswin Krishna. He had joined this event and I was reading his message on the screen. I used to teach him some 4 or 5 years back. He's from Kerala. We generally talk on certain occasions. We share our, of course, whatever we feel like sharing. And still, I have always observed, whether it is Aswin or Bibin or other students of mine coming from all 26, 27 states of the country, that they remain equally connected to the department and to the teachers and to the university. And reason behind that is, while they are in the university, they develop that sense of attachment because of the element of compassion and element of sensitivity among the teachers. There is another good student of mine whom I could notice here, Rekha. She is now an assistant professor at Government College Rewari. I taught her for many years together. She did her MPhil under my supervision. Then I supervised her for PhD also. And then, God willing, with her all efforts and of course her commitment, she became a teacher of higher education. But still, for me, she is just like the same little girl, as immature, as curious to learn, as she was while she joined me for the first time in the year 2010. I never found any other difference. And they remain, my students remain for me as little as they were, despite all the intellectual scholarship they have developed. And this is only because of the sensitivity of the students towards the teachers. They make us what we are, and we should also be equally sensitive to our students. This is what I generally feel. Because this is a wonderful platform provided by so to me, I would certainly like to talk about one more aspect and then I'll try to conclude. And that is one thing that I observed personally, and which is an attribute all teachers, perhaps, according to me, they should possess. And that is self-restraint. Self-restraint is very important. This passion in teacher doesn't mean that the teacher compromises with the self-restraint. Teachers should always know his or her domain. That my domain is to guide the student, to teach the student, and to take care of all sort of such issues which the student expects you to respond, expects you to address. And that's why propriety should be maintained in this profession. Propriety is important. Self-restraint is important. And unless we maintain propriety and self-restraint, we sometimes deviate from the established standards of being a teacher. That's equally important. And lastly, one more point and then I'll shut my mouth. A teacher, I feel, should be an actor first, as many great thinkers have also said. And for that I have myself experienced as to how it is important to be an actor for a teacher. And generally I share this anecdote with my students also. And this anecdote I am again sharing with all the participants here. In 1995, I was searching for a job. And that was the year when I completed my B.Ed. And I was searching for a job. And I went for the first interview for the post of the teacher in a school. And of course, as usual, they used to practice a particular methodology to select the teachers. And the school administrator, he simply asked me to reach to so-and-so class. And the peon took me to that class. And I was to give a demo. I was to give a demo of my teaching skills. But of course, because it was not expected by me at that moment that I'll be taken to the class and I'll be exposed to teaching. And all of a sudden that assignment was given to me that you teach the class. And that class, later on I came to know that was the class of all naughty students. 10th A class. And of course, like headmaster was there, principal was there, one expert of subject was there. And then, of course, principal simply asked me to start. And this was all natural. I didn't prepare for this segment of my interview process. I didn't prepare for that because I was not expecting myself to be taken to the class to give a demo. And I was to teach. Impulsively or instantaneously, I simply asked the students as to which topic would you like to learn today. And students were very naughty. And they simply said non-finite verbs. And sorry, my dear friends, at that moment of time, I was not very much familiar with intricacies of that topic, the way it was expected to be taught to the students of class 10. Then what to do, Sanjiv Kumar? Then of course the whatever came from within. I simply asked the students, okay, fine. You want to learn non-finite verbs. And if you want to learn non-finite verbs, first of all, it is very important for you to understand as to what is verb. What is a transitive verb? What is intransitive verb? And by the time I could define and give examples of verb, transitive verb, intransitive verb, and it was the time when I was to start teaching that topic, which for me was very difficult. At that moment, time was over. And by chance, I could impress. And I got selected. Fine? So that very moment taught me as to how important it is to have the presence of mind for a teacher. And then I also adopted one more strategy to teach, that it's always good to say sorry. But because it was an interview, sorry couldn't work. And particularly among our senior students, this is what we generally practice. If we are not prepared, better it is to say to the students, sorry students, we will talk about it later, and I will talk about it once I am prepared for it. Means we should not hide our ignorance from the students, and students understand it better that every teacher, every individual has some limitations which should be appreciated. Fine, with all these words, I now shut my mouth and I express my gratitude for the sincere participants for bearing with me for almost an hour. And I, on behalf of Central University of Haryana, I, on behalf of entire university fraternity, my friends, my students and everybody around, I thank the organizers for holding this event on such a wonderful topic, which reminds us of our, of course, real duty, which reminds us as to how important we are. But yes, of course, as I have already mentioned, this reminder is not in good taste sometimes, because if we don't perform accordingly, then of course it is something that disappoints us at some point of time. And that's why thank you, thanks a lot, and I hope to see you once again. And one thing that I would say before I leave, that is reward for good work is more work. And why do I say this? Because Poojaji and Rahulji and our team at Central University of Haryana, we organized perhaps the first national webinar on national education policy on 8th and 9th August. Perhaps it was the first national webinar organized by any university or organizations across the country after notification of NEP 2020. And that seminar was so successfully conducted that now our team here at Central University of Haryana, we feel like having support from SODH, and of course SODH is always welcome to associate with us for any such academic activity where we can contribute as best as we can. Thank you, thanks a lot. Thank you all the participants, thanks a lot.